Podcasts are pretty common. So what makes the Uncommon podcast uncommon? Well, it's all in our name. I'm your host, Noah Weiss, and we at Uncommon Sports Group understand the unique pressures and temptations that come with a career in the sport industry. We provide uncommon training that helps you successfully navigate common challenges. Hit the follow button on this podcast. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Check out our website and become uncommon. Welcome back to the Uncommon Podcast. I'm your host, Noah Weiss, and I'm excited to welcome the co-director of player engagement with the Detroit Lions, Jessica Gray, on the show today to hear her career story. Jessica, how are you?
I'm great, Noah. How are you?
Doing well. So good to have you on here today. And Jessica, you got your start in the sport industry as a basketball manager at Temple University. How did you land that position, and what impact did your time at Temple have on your career?
Yeah, so I started off as a work study my freshman year with the basketball program and kind of worked my way up. Saw that I was doing a lot of the office work and I wanted to kind of have some hands-on involvement with practice. So sophomore year, I started as a manager and it stuck. And I would say that opportunity for me was probably the light bulb of that I could do this at this level. I had been a girls basketball manager in high school, and I really fell in love with just the operational side, the behind the scenes side. So that was really the door opening for me to see that I could actually do this as a career.
Absolutely. And I think it's really interesting. So many people's testimonies in the sport industry really start as being a volunteer manager, whether it be with basketball, football, baseball, some sport. And I think that's a great place to start because it does, as you said, give you that inside look into what it really takes to be in the sport industry and what career opportunities are there. So I appreciate you sharing. That's awesome.
Yes.
And Jessica, you spent the summer of 2013 as a marketing associate with Madison Square Garden. Sometimes it can be hard for young professionals to really want to take short-term internships, especially for just a summer. But what impact did taking on that summer internship have on your career?
Yeah, so I took that internship during grad school. So I was serving as a GA, but I had the time off in the summer. And really for me, I always dreamed of working and living in New York City. So it was kind of like to have a summer in New York City and to kind of see a different side of the business. At that point, I had spent majority of my time and all my time either in high school sports or college sports. So to work for Madison Square Garden Company for that summer, it really opened up for me to see a different space. And for me at that point in my life, it kind of confirmed that I was doing what I wanted to do and what I loved to do, which was working in college athletics at the time. So it opened me up to working for Madison Square Garden Company and for working for a larger corporation. But it confirmed that I liked having that like human interaction on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that is a huge benefit, what you mentioned of taking on different roles, especially short-term roles, is really understanding what do you love to do? What do you really like? You might go into an internship and love it, and that's the career path you choose. Or in your case, it might be a little different where you're like, I'm good in the college world of sports. So I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's a great learning point for young professionals. That's awesome.
Sure.
And Jessica, you went back to your alma mater. You just mentioned you had a graduate assistant position as a compliance and student athlete affairs assistant. How did you land that position, and how did you set yourself apart as a manager with Temple to receive the opportunity to come back as a graduate assistant?
Yeah, so I think for me, during my time as a manager, I hadn't even thought past undergrad and continuing to build on those relationships I had with my coaching staff. Fran Dunphy was my head coach at the time, a great human being that always created space for me. And so when I decided to go back to grad school, he welcomed me with open arms because of the work ethic and the commitment to the program that I displayed during undergrad. So again, being able to do my job really well with basketball, but also knowing at the time I didn't want to be a coach, I had a lot of free time that I was able to then start volunteering in the Compliance Student Athlete Affairs office. So again, I always try to encourage people to maximize their time and to be efficient because again, I was able to do what I needed to do at basketball, but still be able to take on something else that was about 20 hours a week and not really skip a beat. And that opportunity in compliance, that really opened me up because at that point I had only ever been with the basketball program. That opened me up to knowing that I had an opportunity and I could really have a real great impact serving the whole department.
Absolutely. Yeah, again, I think it's just so important, like you said, to maximize that time you're with a Division I program, in your case, Temple, and just being able to really just get yourself rooted in the organization and understand the different places you can go in the sport industry, the different things you can do. And really the biggest part is networking, right? You get to meet different people and get your name out there, and really they can see your work ethic and what you are really gifted in. I think that's just an awesome thing for our young professionals to really hear is when you're in those positions of volunteer roles like being a manager, it's important to really maximize that time and use it wisely. So appreciate you sharing there for sure. And Jessica, you were promoted from that graduate assistant role into the compliance and student athlete affairs coordinator. What did that promotion process look like, and how did you prepare yourself for the increased responsibilities that you gained in that promotion?
Yeah. So at that time, I was working under Sharita Freeman, who's now an athletic director. And again, Sharita was somebody else that I had, been around during my undergraduate experience, and always was open door policy, always was willing to help and educate me. Yeah. So really that process, I would say, was slightly awkward just because I was like the internal candidate.
Yeah.
So that's my first time being an internal candidate. But Sharita helped me navigate that process with grace and in respect, to know that like, hey, I know this is a competition. And ultimately I was afforded an opportunity to take that coordinator role. So for me, it was just, again, a testament to my hard work and testament to me always being a sponge and just trying to come in and help, because I definitely was not the most qualified candidate, but I was there, I was committed, I had inside knowledge to the organization and to the team. And, again, just somebody willing to bet on me based on how I had shown up previously.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's also key, kind of what you mentioned. We may not always have the best qualifications, but if we really put in the work and really show based on our value of working hard and putting in the time, it can really pay off in great dividends. So I appreciate you sharing that. Really cool testimony too. I think just your time you spent at Temple and continuously showing that organization and that school over and over again that you could be a trusted source for them. So I think that's a really cool testimony for our listeners. Wherever they're planted, it could be a place where they really take root and grow and show what they can do to the people in that department. So I appreciate you sharing. It's awesome. And Jessica, in 2018, you transitioned to George Washington University to take the role of Student Athlete Development Associate. What played into your decision to go to GW, and what impact did your time there have on your career?
Yeah, so at that point, I had been at Temple for 10 years, since the moment I stepped foot on campus as a freshman to when I was leaving as a college athletics administrator. And I think for me, again, just being really rooted in what I believed in and how I wanted to have an impact, I really wanted to continue to serve. And in my role at Temple, it was not always ideal just because it was a lot of things in one, but it did allow me to have the opportunity to realize I did not want to do compliance full time for the rest of my career. But I really was passionate about student athlete affairs, student athlete development. And so for me, when I was really thinking about pivoting out of that space, I knew that the next opportunity that I took, I had to have just one sole responsibility, which was student athlete development. Because again, for almost 3.5 years, I did both. So again, I understood that I had to sit in that role for a little while sometimes it was uncomfortable. I knew I had to gain the skills to be able to pivot if I wanted to just do compliance, or if I wanted to do student athlete development. I had to be able to showcase that I had actually had some skin in the game, that I had taken some time to do program development. That way. So again, I felt very prepared when I was going out into the job market, and then the GW opportunity kind of just made sense for me in terms of where I was at geographically. It wasn't too far away from Philly, where I'm from. But also it allowed me to explore a new city. And in a department, in an athletic department that had been familiar to me because they were in the athletic 10. So again, it felt very comfortable. And I knew that going there would allow me to be able to just really focus solely on student athlete development and really be able to not take off the compliance hat and really be a practitioner. And then I just knew that transition was going to be transformational for me in regards to whatever I did next, because it allowed me to move away from the compliance and really sink my teeth into student athlete development.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's a really cool listening point for our young professionals who may be in that same place one day in their career where it's a decision that sets them up better for future opportunities. And I think that's really cool about your story, and a good transition, because your next stop was at Texas Tech, where you were able to initially take on the role of Assistant Director of Community and Character Development, a very cool role. And you were later promoted to Assistant Athletics Director of the JT and Margaret, let's see if I get this right, Talkington Leadership Academy. How did you get your foot in the door at Texas Tech, and how did you prepare yourself for a role in administration?
Yeah, so again, I think I credit that GW transition that year for a lot. I think, again, being able to really focus and really grow in terms of curriculum building, in terms of just overseeing student athlete groups and support and community service for a department. Again, I was a one woman shop in that regard. So I was really able to be prepared for whatever was to come next. And then again, being able to focus on my professional development as well. With various organizations, my name was out there, but really most importantly, besides my name being out there, my work was out there, and my why and how I produced. So that was really what opened the door and provided the opportunity for Texas Tech, which I know for a lot of people it could look like a lateral move, but I was never thinking about titles or frankly geographic location. I was thinking about the opportunity for my own growth and my own like the ability to serve. So I knew that going to Lubbock and being able to be on the team that we had at the time, like Lamar Pottinger was assembling a team of people that could actually come in and intentionally have your own pocket. So again, I had gone from Temple, where I did 2 jobs in one, to GW, where I had 1, and then Texas Tech was allowing me to even more positively like streamline and focus. So I was able to really get into the nitty gritty with character and community development and help with the starting of a real department. So that was exciting, because again, it was just like, okay, I'm shedding the layers. I'm shedding a lot of the tasks, but now I can really specialize in something that, again, who knows the trajectory of where it could take me.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's well said. And I think that's really the exciting part about the sport industry. And I think for our young professionals is you have patience, you can really get to a place where you're doing what you love, but it does take, kind of to your story in the beginning, it takes that time going through those different positions like compliance to really be where you want to be. So it's almost like putting in the hours and reaching that point in your career. And it's really cool, I think, Texas Tech too, just seeing that position you're able to be in. I think that's impactful for your own career as well. So that's awesome. Appreciate you sharing. And Jessica, you currently are with the Detroit Lions as the co-director of player engagement. We have seen women taking on more and more leadership roles in professional sports. How have you navigated working in a male-dominated industry like the NFL?
Yeah, so I think I've had prior experience, right? I was the one female grad assistant with the men's basketball team. I was one of a handful of female men's basketball managers in undergrad. So I'm very comfortable being in spaces where I may be the only, but I'm really big on making sure I'm no longer the only. You know, it's only a short amount of time that I'm the only person here. So for me, it's really, the transition's really just been, okay, now I'm not thinking about this programming in the sense of an amateur athlete. I'm thinking about it as somebody that this is their profession, and just navigating all of the changes in rules and just ability. I would say that's been the biggest challenge. But again, just having a male leader and my current supervisor, Brad Holmes, our GM, to be able to have the space to be able to grow and to be able to be free and not to be kind of like pigeonholed in any way, to just come in and really be a practitioner for the space and continue to grow with innovation and just great ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really cool. And I think it's so inspiring to see, I think, for young professionals that are women, being able to see people like yourself that are getting up to these positions with teams like the Lions and different things of that nature. I think it's really exciting to see, and I'm definitely excited to see it continuing to happen in sports. And kind of a follow-up question, Jessica, for our listeners that don't know, could you kind of just give a little breakdown of what player engagement really is?
Yeah, so I would really, people think about it in the college space, it is literally player development or student athlete development in the college space. My primary focus is everything off the field. So again, their holistic development, career development, life skills development, and just making sure that their lives off the field are kind of in a space where they can actually focus on the field. So it could be anything. We help a lot with their family members. We do a lot of collaboration within our building. But the NFL has a player engagement team that helps, pass down the standards of excellence in terms of programming and resources. And we work really well with the NFLPA as well. So again, just being that liaison to various departments, whether they're internal to the organization or external, and it's being that support. So the same people you may see on a athletic administration staff or football or basketball staff, no coaching responsibilities. I have nothing to do with them being on the team, but it's really about their enjoyment and how their experience is off the field and how that can translate onto the field.
Absolutely. And I think it's a really important role. I don't think we often really think about how important that is for a player that's playing at that level, of how tough off the field issues and situations and even financial things. How do you handle that much money? You need somebody to kind of walk you through that, right? And how do you handle different things of the unique pressures that come with being a professional athlete? So I think it's a very important role. I think it's an exciting role. Actually, I was an intern with the Indianapolis Colts for 2 summers, and I met David Thornton down there, who was their player engagement director, and I just love what he did and love hearing his stories and testimonies of how he's impacted athletes. So I think just being able to share a little bit about that is, I think, a really cool thing, and hopefully our young professionals can see the impact that it has. Super cool. And lastly, Jessica, what advice would you give a young professional who is desiring to reach heights similar to yours in the sport industry?
Yeah, I would honestly just do the work. Mm-hmm. I have always had aspirations of how my impact could be felt, and the reach that I could have through serving other people. But I never tied it to an organization. I never tied it to a certain level. I went where my heart and where God determined I was best to be. Absolutely. Able to be serve how I needed to serve in that role at that time. Yeah. So I would say, take the labels off, take the titles off, do the work, and really establish what your why is early on. Like I said, in grad school, I was very clear on knowing what I didn't want to do at that point in time. And I was able to really focus my energy and my efforts into some streamlined spaces. So I would say do the work unapologetically. Mm-hmm. People are watching. Like, it's not a joke. Like Coach Dumpy, as many times as I didn't think early on that he noticed me when I was just doing laundry, like he noticed me, right? Like, people notice what you're doing. People notice when you're just doing the work selflessly. People notice how you show up. So I would say establish what your why is. If your why is rooted in self-serving and, the glory and the glitz, it's not going to be as fun because it's long days, it's long nights. And I mean, again, money's out there, but there's not enough money in the world to kind of, deal with your happiness long term. So just thinking about just why you're doing it, why you aspire to be in those roles, and then just doing the work, because you're going to have hard days. I don't believe in that. If you find something you love, quote, you'll never work a day in your life. I work today. I love it, but I work every single day. Absolutely. But I can get through those tough days because I know that it's tied to a larger purpose than me. So I think just continue to do the work unapologetically. Be honest and be bold in what you want. Make sure other people know what you want, but then also make sure you do the work to back it up. Absolutely.
Super well said, especially on the point of the why. I think that's sometimes the thing with so many young professionals. It's like, oh, I grew up playing baseball or I grew up playing football, and it's like, I'll just do that. And then it's like, well, it's not really playing the game, right? There's so much more to it, and I think that's such a big point. And even to the point about service, every job in the sport industry is service-based. Especially at the manager level, but even as you climb the ranks, I mean, it's still very service-oriented. And I think, as you mentioned, from a faith-based perspective, that can be a great sort of not about yourself, put it for another purpose, reason of why you really want to serve in that way. So I think having a strong why is very important. So I appreciate that's great advice. Absolutely. And Jessica, thank you for joining the show today and sharing your career journey with us, and go Lions.
Thank you. Well, pride.
If you want to get involved with Uncommon Sports Group and the mission that we are on to help you navigate the sport industry as followers of Christ, apply for our academy on our website at uncommonsg.org. That's uncommonsg.org. Be sure to catch new episodes of the Uncommon podcast every Thursday at midnight Eastern Time, as well as the full video episodes on our YouTube channel. Until next time, we pray that you will strive to be uncommon by glorifying the name of God in whatever you may do. See you next week.